Hello and welcome to Rule of Carnage, a video series and sometimes podcast where me and Glenn, a pair of game designers and developers, talk about these games that we make. And Glenn, you've been making one of these games, I believe, recently, and I had a little playtest of it, but I believe it's moved on a little bit from where we last played. Are you in a position to tell us about your new game? I'm excited and intrigued to learn more, as I'm sure the gentle listener is.
I think that when this video goes out, it's going to be in a place where I want to start getting some public playtesting and some eyes on it.
Nice.
So that's part of why I want to sort of chat about it and do a little video. So I'll open by saying that hopefully there'll be a link to what will probably be a Google Doc in the comment section of this video. So please do go down, take a look at the game, make some comments on it, insult it, etc., etc. And it'll be up in the Discord. I'll do a playtesting channel in the Discord for it. And hopefully there might even be like a TTS mod for it, and I might even be available for playtesting it, depending on...
Glenn is committing to things that have not yet come to pass. Gentle listener, find out which of these things he has completed by the time this video goes out.
Well, I've got a solid month and a touch before this video goes, so
All right, enough preamble, Glenn. What is it?
Okay, so the game is Pukeapocalypse. It came out of a combination of thoughts relating to Inc. 28, Morkborg, and a game called Dungeon Degenerates, and the work of its creator Sean Aberg.
Three wonderful arty things all scrambled together. Lovely.
Yes, and also I think some of the ethos is behind it. So I was reading an interview with Sean Aberg, and one of the inspirations for Dungeon Degenerates was in series 1 of Blackadder, the British sitcom. There's a witch smeller who comes and decides that Blackadder is a witch. And Sean Aberg loved the idea of a witch smeller specifically. So there's a witch smeller like in Dungeon Degenerates. And then he tried to create these other sort of weirdos and oddballs with peculiar sort of abilities and powers that it wouldn't fit into any sort of normal world. And that struck me as being very like Morkborg, but I tried to sort of come up with what my versions of some Dungeon Degenerate characters would be. And the one that kept coming into my head is the Puke Monk, who's like a sort of a Zen monk, based around the power of vomiting onto people. And also the artwork of Dungeon Degenerates has been referred to as acid punk. And the first 2 letters of Puke Monk and the last 2 letters of Puke Monk make punk. And so I was like, okay, I'm thinking that there's some sort of punk thing going on. These Puke Monks are themselves punks. And I was thinking about Morkborg and thinking about its sort of the apocalypse aesthetic to it. The idea that in Morkborg the apocalypse is definitely happening. You're basically in the rundown towards the end of the world. And I was thinking about how a lot of post-apocalyptic games, it clearly wasn't an apocalypse because you'll post it and it is apparently okay, and a lot of people have died, but it looks like you're probably going to rebuild society, so that's not what I really understand as an apocalypse. So I wanted to create a world where
there ought to be a graduated scale of apocalypse.
Apocalypse. So I wanted to have a game that was post-apocalypse, but it was post-apocalypse that was an apocalypse. So in the world of Pukeapocalypse, basically everyone is going to die. Everyone is, so there's been so much pollution and radioactivity that everybody's stomach acid is basically strong enough to start eating through your body. And ideally you will find a way to die quickly, because not dying quickly is going to make you dissolve horribly, like within the next couple of months. And it's going to be a couple of months. There is not enough time to deal with this problem. Everybody is definitely, the human race is definitely done. It's over. And now it's about just sort of, trying to do something dumb, like at the end of the world, before your short and horrible life craps out. Which for me, that to me is what I feel is the sort of the feel of the Morkborg, the whole Inc. 28 thing of, we're looking at people who don't matter and will never really matter, and examining their life within this sort of dystopian universe and world, and their little sort of interactions and the things that happen with them. So that's the sort of the world of Pukeapocalypse. It's very punk, it's very neon, it's very, it knows a lot of rude words, and it's rather proud of them. And the main weapon within the game is vomiting on people, and the primary economy is piss. And so that's this thing that
Is that the only drinkable water left?
Yes, that is the idea of it, that all wild water has become radioactively polluted, so only water that was within human systems when the apocalypse came is in any way usable. But as it runs through the system, it gets thicker and thicker and gloopier, and there's less liquid. So every now and again you have to go to a recycle center, but you have to grab some extra piss because yours will have not enough liquid in it. And you can only get that off of other people, and then you go to the recycle center and they cycle it into it's a vaguely liquidy straw-like looking thing, and then you go back out again and you come back when it's a load of molasses and get it like purified down into at least 1 pint of semi-drinkable liquid. And so that's the economy of Pukeapocalypse. Not that you'll live particularly long enough to engage with that cycle more than a few times in the game. So mechanically, there's a few things that has thrown up to me that I think are interesting. So one of the things I think about Morkborg is that by definition, in that sort of world, characters shouldn't last very long. They should die,
right,
and they should be replaced. And in Morkborg, that's dealt with by having this really, really fast, cool character generation process. So your guy gets his head bitten off, and that's great because bang, 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 I've got a new guy, and I get to try him out. And this is brilliant. I was bored of that guy anyway. Let's run this guy into a mincing machine. With tabletop miniatures games, particularly with a narrative campaign game, that's a lot harder because partly I need to convert up and paint up a miniature, and I want that miniature to be this particular guy. And particularly if I'm playing a narrative campaign, I might want to twiddle with him and stick things on him that he's earned and adjust him as he goes along. So one of the systems in the campaign system for Pukeapocalypse is it has a die to progress system. You don't get to spend any of the experience you've picked up until you die. And you pass on to your replacement anything that has been modeled onto the miniature. So you get miniature 1 and he dies and he gets a particular thing added on, a mutation or an object. You model that onto the miniature. The guy who replaces him when he's dead gets it, and if you don't model it on, he doesn't. And for me, I'm always quite concerned.
And does it have to be a different miniature, or can it be the same?
No, it's the same miniature each time. It's like his second cousin once removed turns up. The point is that you get rewarded for modeling on the experience steps that the person has taken. I'm always quite concerned, and this is the sort of thing that bothers me, and I don't think bothers you. I'm quite concerned about why people are having to use miniatures in the game. Why exactly? I'm not just saying just get bases, it's fine.
No, I like it because it's very much a direct line from game to playing piece, and seeing as you've got something where you're going to try and inspire people to do Necromunda-ish type conversions, reward them for that gamically.
Yeah, because it's my first concern is it's okay, well, I've converted up this lovely miniature, and now basically I'm playing a game where 80% of the things on the tabletop die every single game. Am I meant to replace miniature every time? That sucks. I spent time on this guy. I don't like it. I am now unhappy. And it's well, how can we deal with that? We could say, okay, look, the next guy looks exactly the same as the old guy. That's slightly unsatisfying until you say, okay, well, actually, it's built into a system where you get rewarded for doing some hobby. You get rewarded for converting the mini up each time. Because that's the thing I love about playing like campaign games, is where someone loses a leg, so you get out the saw and you cut his leg off, or somebody gets an extra gun, so you model on the extra gun.
And so just to play devil's advocate then, so why is that like you've said the model's dead? Why in what way have they died?
What, as in?
Well, because most things die during the game, but then you get them back with the same stuff. So what about them has died?
I mean, frankly, you die in that scenario. It's the equivalent of like when a game says, okay, you died in the scenario, then roll a dice, and on a 1 on a d20,
hooray, you're back.
They actually died. On anything else, they survived. Well, just make them survive. Everyone just wants them to survive. I don't really want them to die. I want them to die in that game. They're essentially KO'd, if you like.
Right.
And then their cousin or somebody who looks exactly like them turns up for the next game. Because frankly, nobody. And this is one of the things, actually, I sort of, when I was developing another game that I wanted to be this really brutal, savage experience, it just occurred to me that it's horrible. Brutal, savage experiences are by and large unpleasant to play. Like, all of your stuff dies, and it's like, well, that was naff. I don't want all my stuff to die. And so it's trying to find this place where I do want my stuff to die. I'm absolutely fine with my stuff dying, as long as it like completes the I win the particular game on the tabletop. I'm more than happy that all my scumbags burst. It is a beneficial thing to me. I don't see any particular value in making dying permanent and punishing, and like, the guy that you really enjoyed and you pull that work into and you really developed the storyline, you rolled a couple of ones, into the bin with him. I don't think that's a particularly beneficial play experience. And even if it is, and when it isn't a beneficial play experience for Pukeapocalypse, the punk game of vomiting into each other's faces repeatedly and laughing as the world burns. And it's not that kind of experience. It is an experience that wants to say, yes, everybody is going to die, and that's fine, and it really doesn't matter. The game and the world say it doesn't matter, and I want you, the player, to think it doesn't matter. And that's a bit of that sort of Ludo narrative thing we were talking about.
I mean, it seems like part of what you were excited about in the death and new character loop from Mortborg was that like random generation thing, which I believe has gone into the system that you've got, where you create a game and you can very quickly generate some new players, right?
Yeah, I've made it quicker than it was previously. It's really quick now. It's like, a couple of dice rolls, really.
So maybe one potential consideration could be you get to roll up a new character and they get all the stuff that the old guy had, or they get some things that's always the same. Like if they were a puke monk, they're always a puke monk, but they get a roll on the special shoes table, but they also get the things that they had before. So it's actually beneficial to die because you get to roll and get more.
Yeah, so the way it works is each game you survive, you get like experience points. You only get to spend those experience points if you die. And then the person who follows on from you so you do want to die. You want to survive one game and then die, basically. Although very few things survive one game, so it does deal with the problem of snowballing in that progress is relatively slow in a weird way.
So what do you do on the table? What's the game?
So the one of the big things mechanically for it. So the version you saw. So basically, I wanted it to revolve around people being sick on each other.
Of course.
One of the lessons I've learned is that if I give you a weird way of attacking and a normal way of attacking, everyone does the normal way of attacking. If I give you a shiv and bizarro thing, you're going to just run up and shiv each other over.
Particularly if it's mechanically simpler.
Yeah. So the only way you can attack each other is to vomit on each other.
Shivs are outlawed.
Everyone just doesn't happen to, you might have
it's not a very shivvy society.
Well, you might have a club or a knife or whatever else, but because somebody else is hosing acidic vomit into your face, your ability to put a knife into them is relatively lessened. And so you experienced a version where the vomiting was based on like measurements, and you had these tokens for how much vomit was in you that just got moved back and forth around the tabletop. The way it works at the moment is that you have a certain amount of bile in your guts, which is off the table, because that's a better way of doing it. I think you pointed out at the time, I don't want to have to be moving these things around the tabletop. Then when it comes to what would be the attack phase, which is the bile phase, you pick the physical tokens up and you lay them across the tabletop in a stream from your guy to the other guy.
Right.
And then when you hit him, you can then stack bile up on him.
So the more your tummy's full of bile, the longer range your attack.
Yep. And then people can basically track back down anybody else's vomit stream. So if you vomit somebody who has not yet vomited and tag them with your stream, they can then basically dump all of their tokens back onto you, because they can vomit back down your river of bile to vomit back onto you in return. So there's a certain amount of who am I vomiting on and in which order, and what can they do with it. Repulsive. And then you can do certain things with your vomit. So you can hose somebody, so you can shove them backwards, because that's quite neat. You pick the guy up, you put the token where he was, and then you put him contacting the token. It has a lot of physicality that very quickly resolves itself, and
nice.
You can flick tokens across the table of certain abilities. So when you place your token, it has to be either touching you or a token you placed, or something that chains to you or a token you placed. So one of the factions has the ability to flick the bile token they put down each round, so they can then like puke a little bit, flick it around a wall, and then puke across the wall like somebody.
The last puke bender.
Yeah, no, yeah, absolutely. So part of the idea is that there are these various factions, each of which have a slightly weird mutation. And yes, one of them flicks tokens, one of them can surround you. If they surround you with a puke loop, they can move you across the tabletop. Things like that. They're all sort of named after various punk genres of music. So yeah, I mean, I'm having a lot of fun with it, partly because I've decided to commit to a sort of an Inc. 28, what I feel is an Inc. 28 style of game, which is a bit more random table based and random event based than I would normally like go to in my designing. And it's fun. It's quite freeing. It's quite.
And is that a deliberate like challenging of yourself, or is it just in this case like your vision for what the experience is supposed to be like is fairly clear, and it just goes in a direction that's not one that you've explored much before?
I think partly a large part of the decision to do this is a sort of there are things about Inc. 28 that I do or don't get, and there's a version of what I think Inc. 28 is, and there's what it is for me. Mm-hmm. And there are things I like about it and there are things I don't like about it, and it's a bit of like playing with like, okay, well, I don't want an Inc. 28 which is like a grim dark 40th century. I want it that's something else, that's another world, that's my world, but I want it to have the things that I do like about that sort of Necromunda Inquisitor, older GW, more table based sort of thing. The thing that it always makes me think of is like old Blood Bowl, the seesaw of chaos in old Blood Bowl. I don't know if you remember this obscure special weapon. There was the Goblin fanatics had a range of special weapons in old Blood Bowl. Now I think they really only have like the ball and chain, but one of the things that goblins could take was a big seesaw.
Oh no, I don't remember this one.
There's a little miniature for it, and you set the seesaw up, and then you got one person stood at one end of the seesaw, and the other person could run up, jump on that end of the seesaw, and if everything went smoothly, the guy on the other end went whoop and did like a big jump, and then could run off. That's
wow.
literally never happened, because there was a table for the guy jumping onto the seesaw, there was a second table for the guy at the other end of the seesaw, and there was a third table for the actual landing. So the guy could jump on this end of the seesaw, that guy could go up, and then he could go down again, and then that guy could go up, and you could literally just keep going up and down on the seesaw if you rolled the certain set of results. Or this guy could go up, and then this guy could fire off in that direction instead of this guy firing off in that direction. And it was like a mad set of combinations of results, and only one of them like pooped out to the thing that you were actually trying to achieve. And anyway, you had to involve 2 players in the middle of a Blood Bowl match in order to attempt to achieve this thing. And what you got out of it was literally about 4 extra spaces of movement. So it was just the worst thing in the world. There was a combination of mad tables that were all embedded into each other that by and large did absolutely sod all the end of it. And
so wait, where are you going with this? This is the design aesthetic you're going for.
No, I love I love the place where GW was in, where it was willing to do something that dumb. That's what it boils down to. I love that idea of like tables that sort of have no place in any game, and I want them to be more modern and have an effect and result in a game state change and do all the sorts of things that us slightly newer game designers think makes you a professional games designer. But I still want to have that world where like random things are involved with doing relatively simple tasks, and throw up chaos and peculiarity. You know, I do enjoy some sort of narrative oddness in games, despite the fact I like them to be quite sort of crunchy and predictable. So it's just, yeah, it's having fun with like building a version of this style of game that is my like lens on it, my interpretation of it, partly what I think it is. And it's partly because I've played a few games of Inquisitor, but I'm not super deep into the Inq 28 world. And it's almost one of those things where it's like, okay, I have this hazy vision of it, which is it's an interesting vision. I'll do that, and then once I've done that, I'll go and play some Inq 28 and find out what it's actually meant to be about, or talk to people who are fans of it and see what they think it's about. And yeah, and it's just sort of it's having fun with it. It's trying to do some of the things that I believe are important about like making miniatures sort of relevant to the way the game plays, having you know, a tactile on the tabletop relationship between tokens and models and miniatures and buildings and you know, trying to have a game that is going for a relatively fast rules light version of play as well. I'm thinking at the moment it might be in a place where you can realistically get like 2 games in a session, and so be more encouraged to start playing a campaign system, because you're
are we talking about 5 models 2 foot square or 3 foot square?
5 models 2 foot square is the layout, and you know, it's a very hip setup. I mean, you get a lot happening very, very quickly, and as is my want, you can deploy anywhere on the table. You can deploy individual models anywhere on the table. I can't be doing with artificially keeping you apart for, you know, to make a game that's an extra turn longer. If it means the game ends up lasting like 4 turns at a stretch, that's fine. I'm completely all right with that.
You know, I'm there for that.
Yeah, so that's the state of Pukeapocalypse at the moment.
Very exciting. Well, get down in the link below and
yes,
check it out. I'm excited to see what state it's in at the point this video goes out.
Absolutely. Please do drop down to the comment section. You know, check out Pukeapocalypse wherever it is at. I'll probably be talking about it at this point in the Discord, if I haven't started already. Please drop into the Discord, you know, hit me up for a playtest. Fingers crossed there'll be a TTS mod, but if not, please do playtest it anyway. It's a 5 model thing. It's relatively low impact, although you will need a lot of 30 mil sized markers or tokens. Like, you know how many you're thinking of? Like double that? that's getting to how many you're going to.
I'm gonna get me some fluorescent green perspex ones for sure.
Yeah, and I think it's a lot of fun. It's working at the moment. I'm in the middle of tweaking like the length of a game and some of the other bits and pieces, but the fundamental engine is fun. So that's the important bit, and I'd love to hear people's opinions on it. Yes, check it out in the comments section. If you like the idea of Pukeapocalypse, hit the like button. If you don't like the idea of Pukeapocalypse, hit the subscribe button, and then you can find out how it will get better in the future. Hit both of them, just for the hell of it. Stop in the Discord, talk to me about it. I'm desperate to hear people's opinions on it. But for now, from us, I think it's going to be a thank you and goodbye. So thank you and goodbye.